Hi, I'm Kacey.
And I'm Gianni.
I never finished reading the Animorphs books as a kid, and I still haven't as an adult.
And I've never read them.
We can't tell you where we live.
But we can tell you that we want to revisit these books as adults and dive into what we would keep or change if we were to put it on TV.
Two friends, 50-something books. Welcome to morphinbuddies.
And then the music kicks in, and then people are just so ready.
Hey everyone, welcome to Morphin Buddies, your most mid podcast around. Me, your host, Kacey Cisnowski, with a lot of energy, and Mr. Gianni DeMaia, my co-host.
I'm just picking up on the vibes you're putting down. I'm loving them.
Picking up on the vibes.
I'm loving them.
Tossing them away.
This is great.
Yeah, good.
We could dance till the sun comes up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's already up because we're recording during the day, but we could dance till it goes down and then comes up again. You know?
And then comes, that's fine. I get up before the sun comes up anyway, so
couldn't pay me.
That's fun.
Couldn't pay me to do that.
Yeah, folks, I work at a gym and I wake up at 3:15 every morning, Monday through Thursday.
Nice.
So
I work from home.
Lucky you. I'm a little bit jelly, if I'm going to be honest. Anyway, Johnny, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about the 7th entry in the Animorphs. We're talking about a little book called The Stranger.
The Stranger. Ooh.
Yeah.
Was it strangery?
It was. It did have a stranger. I was surprised.
It did have a stranger.
I don't know. Like I feel weird being like, if you haven't listened to the other episodes, because I don't know why you would start with episode 7. But if you haven't listened to the other episodes, we have a running bit, which is that the titles often don't have the title in them. And so I'm always expecting that they're not going to, and then this one totally did. So we're back, baby. K.A. Applegate. She's firing on all cylinders. Actually, this one was also co-written with her husband. I think we found out it was her husband, right? Michael Grant.
Yeah.
That's the guy. Yeah. So, yeah, Michael Grant is back, to contribute.
Yes. They make a good team.
Yeah.
I like them.
They're cooking with gas. They're cooking with gas.
My dad loves to say that. Cooking with gas. Oh, boy. And then he claps his hands together and slaps his knee.
It is such a dad thing. That's such a dad thing.
He's such a dad.
Gotta love dads.
Yeah. How did you feel about this book?
I really like this book. This book rocked. IMO. Here's the thing. Without getting into spoiler territory, because obviously we're in our pre-spoiler moment of the show. This book introduces a thing. It is the stranger, okay? But I won't talk about who the stranger is, okay, until we get into the spoiler section. But it introduces a little stranger, right? And the whole time I was saying to myself, I was like, this is super cool. But the enjoyment of this book is totally going to depend on the rest of the series, because if this stranger comes back in like a big way or something, then I'm like sick with it, dude. Like, this is pretty cool. If this is just a one and done, then this suddenly becomes the dumbest book that we've ever read in this series. Like, because it's like this is gonna piss some people off, but this is something I believe to the core of me, so I'm very sorry. But my favorite Harry Potter book is also plagued by something like this, which is The Prisoner of Azkaban, which is a great book. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But the Time Turner, as soon as you introduce the Time Turner, it's something that powerful being introduced into that universe. None of the rest of it makes sense, because you're telling me that like none of this had to happen. We could have just used the Time Turner to go all the way back, just make sure that Voldemort just never even exists, right? Yeah. So you can't like, when it comes to fantasy, when it comes to science fiction, there's always these like sort of weird gaping plot holes with these things that are introduced with immense power, and I don't think that there is a glaring plot hole this large yet with this new stranger character. Could I see it happening? If this, yes, I could. And so I am cautiously optimistic, because I really liked this like very experimental science fiction wrench thrown in the whole thing that completely subverts expectations. I really enjoyed that. If it doesn't come back in any sort of impactful way in the rest of the series, this is all pointless, and this is and now made worse because it would be a sort of gaping plot hole that could kind of speak for the rest of the series. So that being said, that's like the major A plot of the book, and I as of reading it right now, having no idea where the series goes beyond this, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really cool, really interesting, really different. I also like this book because I do think that it pushed Rachel as a character a little bit more. She's dealing with like a trope, like a pretty conventional like teenager trope thing as her like sort of B plot, but I actually quite liked that trope. I thought that it I love little reminders that they're still like just kids dealing with everyday things, or dealing with, you know, just the problems of being a teenager on top of, oh yeah, we're also Power Rangers who can morph into different animals and stuff. So I really like that stuff because I think it just complements the heavier dramatic points of, you know, the A plot more often than not. I quite liked this one. This is, as of now, in my rankings that I have pulled up, it's my number 2.
Oh, wow.
So I have it above The Message right now, and below The Predator. So I actually quite liked this one. But what did you think, Casey?
I like this one, too. I like that it was, again, a little bit different than what we're used to. It kind of started out in that same procedural format, but then when we get to like the real meat of it, of this stranger, I did really enjoy seeing that world, seeing what could be, having that conflict of, and figuring out the moments as they continue through the book with this decision that the stranger offered them. I really enjoyed that. I can tell you that this stranger, as far as I remember, does come back. So I think
that's good.
I think it's very hazy, but I feel like this stranger does come back in later books. Not often, but
I mean, yeah, I would be shocked if you have 50 some odd books and don't reincorporate this in some way. So
and he doesn't come back.
That would be fucking hilarious. But I wouldn't put it past him. For some reason, there's just something about it that I'm like, maybe Applegate was just like, she's on book like 49 and she's like, oh shit, I forgot about this.
I forgot about this guy. She's got like her whole board with the red threads connecting the characters, and the stranger's just alone by himself,
just
and she's
like
like,
tucked
oh,
away under a picture.
Crap. Yeah, she's like, no.
I forgot about this guy.
But no, yeah, I found it to be very enjoyable. I found the angst and the decision making in this with Rachel to be very mature and intelligent. Like I said in a previous episode, I think it was Tobias's book. Rachel is one of the more mature people in our group of Animorphs. I feel like she's a lot more grown up than she gets credit for. And I think, obviously, she feels she needs to put on this tough face, but it is very, very difficult for her to actually dive into her own emotions. She's aware of them, and she gets overwhelmed by them. And I always like seeing a struggle like that with a character. Like, how do they work through these moments? How do they grow from it? And what are they like once they make those decisions? So I always enjoy that good character juicy.
Yeah. And I think this one is better than most because I was interested in both plots, which is, and I don't mean this nearly as offensively as it's going to come across, which is more than I could say for some of the other books in the series, where like the B plot is like very inconsequential or something like that. So
Right.
Yeah, I quite like this one. I think that all of the formulaic moments I think work to its advantage, and then I think once the wrench is thrown in, it felt like it took a lot of good lessons from the Capture, that previous book, where we were saying like the Capture really feels like, oh, it's not like the formula at all. Like they kind of do change it up a lot, and I felt like this one had that, and then had a little bit of that element of the Capture too, where like the real plot doesn't start until, you know, somewhere between like a third and halfway through the book. And I thought it was, I thought it complemented the story well, because you got to keep these audiences on their toes, you know what I mean? You got to keep these readers guessing what's going to happen next, you know? Where's it going to go? And that's definitely something I like.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, should we dive into this plot now?
Let's dive in. Let's dive deep.
Dive in. Let's get deep in
Let's
there.
Let's go for it.
Let's wiggle around a little bit. Well, it starts out, Rachel, she is talking about her dad at the beginning of the book. There was one line that really stood out to me that I was like, oh, Rachel, where she says, that would be nice, feeling like my dad admired me. And I was just like, oh my God, Rachel. Like her dad is like some big time newscaster, or I guess right now mid-sized newscaster, and she doesn't see him that often. She stays with her mother and her sisters, and so she's thinking about her dad, talking about her dad, and I
have a question, Casey, because
yes.
sometimes I read these books and I'm big dum-dum, and sometimes like these character things come up like in like a passing line, but the books are so brief and I'm so caught up with other things that I miss it. Is this the first time that it's been mentioned that Rachel's parents are divorced? It's not, right? But I did not remember.
I can't remember if they specifically said divorced. I think it was mentioned that they live apart from each other, but I can't remember if they specifically said that they were not married.
Yeah.
So
okay. So I'm not totally an idiot. Okay. Because I really was like, oh, I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I'm awful.
Well, they also seem like
so
a well-adjusted family. Like, it doesn't feel like there's a ton of drama between the siblings. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of like anger or bitterment or resentment from Rachel's mom against, like, anytime she talks about her dad. So, you know, you don't really assume divorce first thing just because sometimes divorces are nasty. But but anyway, so yeah, Rachel's thinking about her dad, and then they are at a carnival with her dad, right? With her two sisters.
Yeah.
Rachel's like, hate carnivals.
Sisters
Love them, so my dad took us to a carnival. And she sees one of the elephant trainers using a cattle prod on the elephants and how clearly they are not liking it. They're very uncomfortable, angry, upset. Rachel's like, that's not right. I gotta do something. And so Cassie's like, what are you gonna do? Because Cassie's there too. And Rachel's like,
right.
I'm gonna teach him a lesson. And so she morphs into her elephant. She hides amongst the other elephants. And then the ringleader comes in. Does Cassie bring the ringleader in, or does he just comes right in?
So like Rachel in the elephant morph like basically makes like a bunch of loud, obnoxious noises so that the guy comes
that's
in.
Right.
And then she grabs him with her trunk, and then this was crazy. Thought speaks to him. I was like,
bad idea.
If you ever use the cattle prod on these elephants again, I'll know and I will come for you. And then she like throws him in the air and he like gets caught on the roof of a tent. And then she gets away. And I was like, this is crazy. Why would you?
She could have broken his entire body.
I mean, just unreal. It was I quite liked it from like a standpoint of like, oh, this is kind of a fun one, because a lot of the books we've talked about this. The formula of a lot of the books is like the opener is always like them stopping some sort of justice, like injustice against animals. And this one I was like more interested in than like say, you know, in the Predator when we're like stopping like a random like mugging. But the way she handles it, I was like, you are so exposing everybody. And again, she gets off 100%. With like just a slap on the wrist from the group, even though this has been talked about every single book this happens.
Every single time.
You would think at one point someone would be like, guys, we just gotta make a pact, okay? Because we all keep doing this.
We gotta stop.
Yeah, like we all keep getting involved in this. We gotta really focus up here. And no, they like all talk the next day, and he's like, you did this at a carnival? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, that's wild. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that's basically it. And then they're off. They're off on the next adventure. So Marco's got some idea. He wants to go find Axe. They all go to the woods. They talk about a plan. Basically, they talk about this thing called the Kandrona or the Kandrona. I don't know
Yeah, I think.
Proper.
Oh, I don't know which pronunciation is correct.
How do you read it when you read it?
Oh, now I'm second guessing myself. Okay, Kandrona. I think Kandrona.
Yeah, I think Kandrona.
But there's an
too.
O, so is it Kandrona?
Like Corona, Kandrona.
Corona, Kandrona.
Oh man.
I don't know.
Yeah, we're awful.
You make a decision, and I'll stick with you.
So the Kandrona.
Kandrona. It's Kandrona.
So they're talking
You
about
heard
the
it here
Kandrona.
at our podcast first. Kandrona. We set the standard. Okay.
So they throw a lot at you here for this little brief tidbit about the Kandrona, and it's.
So what is the Kandrona?
It's like, okay, so in the Yerk pool is like powered by the Kandrona, like it's a piece of like their sun kind of was mentioned at a certain point. Is that right?
Yeah. The Kandrona, it's like the rays from the Kandrona are what makes the goo that they slip into every 3 days. That gives them the nutrients. It's like going outside and getting your vitamin D from the sun. The Kandrona is needed for the Yerks to be able to feed. Otherwise, they can't get their nutrients and they die.
Got it.
So, very necessary.
So they're like, we need to start attacking these things at the source is basically the idea.
Which is a good idea.
Yeah, they have a bead on a Yerk pool. They want to infiltrate it and basically pose as cockroaches to get inside and then take apart the Kandrona.
Try to find like where it is essentially.
So they think it's like in this dressing room or something. They like all turn into cockroaches. It's gross.
But right before that, Rachel goes home, and then
she gets her bear morph before this, right?
Yes, I believe so. After. It's after.
Okay, good.
So Rachel goes home. Her dad talks to her and says, "Hey, I got a brand new newscasting job, but I'm going to be in a different city, like a lot of miles away. I'm not going to be able to visit you all the time. Do you want to come with me? And your sisters can stay with your mom, and you can come with me. There's a big gymnastics coach there that I'm sure you can train with. There's a lot to do. We can go climbing and hiking, and it'll be a big opportunity, even though it's a big change." And Rachel is very upset. She doesn't want to talk to him. And he's like, "Look, you don't have to make a decision now. You can just let me know, but this is what's going to happen. I can't say no to this opportunity." And so Rachel's very upset because she loves her dad. So she has her little first like emotional angst, and she morphs into an owl and she flies into the night to think. She meets up with Tobias and she's like, "Hey, Tobias, I was just kind of thinking, like, what happens in the future with the whole Animorphs thing? Like, when we go to college, are we going to move away? Are we not going to be friends anymore? Are we going to stop doing this? Like, what happens in a few years when we become adults?" And Tobias is like, "Well, we either defeat the Yerks or we die."
So shout out to Applegate on this and co-writer, because I do just want to highlight, like, it's really cool with where this book goes, that their whole conversation here is just about like the future that they can kind of see, whereas the overarching main plot later is going to be like in your face about what the future may hold. And I just really like that the thematic sort of tie of this whole thing is like the uncertainty of the future. It's very clear, and it's really interesting how both plots are able to like kind of weave it into what the overarching theme of the book is. I think it's more successful than probably any other book that she's like touched so far.
Yeah, they work
like,
really
what those
well
main themes are.
and complement each other.
Yeah. Yeah, so just a shout out to that. Obviously, as everyone's going to see in a second when we get into the actual spoilers of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because the main plot ain't even hit yet. So
Not yet. So now after she's done talking to Tobias, then she goes to the zoo and she finds a grizzly morph and she acquires it. Basically saying, "I want to feel powerful. I want something more powerful. I don't want to feel all this angst. And let me find an animal, a new morph," which is kind of a big no-no. You don't want to go to the zoo at like midnight and get into a grizzly cage while they're asleep.
Yeah, I wouldn't. But
Yeah.
she does.
But she's in her feels. She's in her feels, and she doesn't care.
Yeah.
She doesn't care.
So then they go. They're doing their whole plan. They're all cockroaches. They can't really see very well, but they get to where they think the Yeerk pool is, or whatever. And before they can really get anything done, they all of a sudden are swept up by something. They realize they're on the literal tongue of a taxon, about to get all devoured.
About to get slurped.
They're panicking, and out of nowhere, time just stops entirely. And they, all of a sudden, all of them, including Tobias, are like human form. And
except for Axe.
They're right. Axe is in his little form. And they are communicating with this thing that calls itself the Elemist. And this is some sort of interdimensional species. It's not entirely clear really where they come from or what they're doing, but you get the impression that this is like kind of an all-powerful being, because they present them with this option. They basically say that the future of this Earth,
Of the human race.
will be that the human race is extinct. They're going to lose this war. And the Elemist would like to offer them the opportunity to, if they would like, basically get them out of here to preserve something of the human race. Like, you can escape with your families and you can be somewhere else, leave this world to its sort of extinction. But
We've
the
got
Elemist
an
also
extra
mentioned something
planet
about,
that's like Earth.
yeah,
I kind of imagine him as like Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen.
yeah,
That's kind of how I see him, if that's a proper alignment with that character. Also,
I'm totally down for that.
I wrote in my notes, he takes all the Animorphs as time is frozen. He takes them down to the middle of the ocean. They're like, look how beautiful your creatures are here. Here's the African savanna. Look how beautiful this landscape is. Here's a jungle. Here's a bunch of major cities. Your planet is so beautiful. And in my notes I put, he airdrops them to the ocean. He airdrops them to the savannah. And that's kind of what he does. He kind of airdrops them everywhere. And he tells them they can choose to stay and fight, which they will lose, and then, or they have a planet. The Elemist has a separate planet, almost exactly like Earth. Yeah, they can take their families and friends to, and a select few other humans that they don't know. I guess for like quote unquote breeding purposes to like continue
that's kind
the
of the
human
implication,
race.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's obviously some difference of opinion within the group. I think it's Tobias that makes the comment, something to the effect of like, this is not to preserve the human race. This is basically to have us as a zoo. Like, you just want to be able to like look at us and ogle us from a distance. To which I think is a fair point, but I would also say, like, is that not what's happening immediately right now? I mean, is that
True.
like the Elements like just came to you in this particular moment? Like, they're watching you as a zoo right now as you're being devoured by Yeerks. But
he also says the Elemist also says, we don't interfere. You get to live your lives. Right. We will not interfere. We are offering you an opportunity because your planet is beautiful. Human race should not go extinct.
And he's basically decided that they are the sample that he would, or this entity would offer to save, because they know what's going on, is something that he says also explicitly. So, interesting moral quandary. Sorry, I got something in my throat all of a sudden. But interesting moral quandary. I think. Well, we'll talk about that when we get to like what we would change in like the adaptation or whatever. But I had an idea there. But I think more importantly, the group ends up all sort of deciding no. Yeah. They are kind of swayed, slowly but surely, but pretty much everybody ends up deciding that they have a real shot at actually saving the Earth, and the Ellimist says that they will ask one more time, and they'll show you what you need to see.
Yeah.
And
if they say yes,
then...
they're going to be immediately transported to this other planet.
Right.
Immediately. Them, all their family, right away. If not, he's just going to leave them exactly where they were, which is stuck to the Taxon's tongue.
There's also a kind of passing moment here where they notice there's some sort of like, I don't even know how they describe it in the book. The duct, there's like some sort of shaft or something that they're noticed like a human controller going through.
The drop shaft.
That's what it was. Drop shaft. I was blanking on the. I said duct. I was like, that's not right. It's not a duct, but yes, drop shaft.
It's a drop shaft.
And they're noticing that, like, I think it's Jake and Rachel specifically that notice it, and they're like, that's a little strange. I don't know why that's in this liminal space between like what's real and what's not.
They see someone floating like in the middle of it since they're at the Yerk pool. It's just something they kind of notice. So drop shaft, if it hasn't been mentioned before in other episodes, it's essentially an elevator without the elevator car. You just kind of step into this shaft, you think about what floor you want to go to, and then it takes you to that floor based on your thoughts. So you're just kind of moving around in midair safely to wherever you want to get, which is pretty cool. So they see someone frozen in there, and they're like, oh yeah, interesting, drop shaft right here in the Yerk pool, maybe we can get out that way. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And so the Ellimist is like, all right, since you guys said no, I'm putting you right back where I found you, right on the tongue of that Taxon. So he does, and the Taxon slurps them up, and it's they're all in his gooey guts.
And then they decide to do the craziest thing possible. Yeah, they're
gonna burst out of him like Ant-Man should with Thanos.
Yeah.
Which
I was thinking the same thing. It's so funny.
I'm so glad you were thinking the same thing. Look, I know that's an old meme, but
it's true.
Yeah, you should have done it.
You have an ace in the hole. You got a silver bullet. Like, might as well. And so, they blow this thing out, obviously, into pieces from the inside. And Axe slices it open and gets them all out. Yeah.
So they start getting beaten up with all the Hork-Bajir and Taxons coming after them because they are at a Yerk pool. And Axe gets cut pretty bad. Rachel decides to morph. She's like, all right, it's grizzly time. And so she morphs into the grizzly bear. It's grizzly time somewhere. And so she morphs, and she kind of completely loses herself in this morph the first time she does it.
Yeah, she goes nuts.
She's taken down everyone around her. She's fighting, ripping limbs. She's like just biting the throats out of these Hork-Bajir and Taxons. And then they all go to the drop shaft, and while they're in there, Jake gets in before Rachel, and then when Rachel sees Jake above her in the drop shaft, she tries to get up to him faster to kill him. And Jake's like, yo, Rachel, pull yourself back. It's me, Jake. You calm down. Calm down. You're letting the rage of the morph take over you. And so she pulls herself back, and she just has a sudden realization of like, oh my God, I didn't even realize I forgot who I was, which is very scary.
Yeah, such a Xena warrior princess she is. And so they the next day, like, she's kind of like going through it, right? She's in her angsty feels. They all meet up as a group. Yeah, they're talking about what happened. They're talking about like, where'd you get this grizzly morph? Like, I snuck into whatever.
Can we talk about this scene a little bit? Because look, Jake earned a point in my book. Earned a point in my book in the last book. Yeah. He goes down a notch for me in this book because Rachel, he's like, you were in morph all day and not at school? And Rachel's like, yeah, I was. I needed some time to think. And then it describes that he gets inches away from her face and he starts yelling at her for being in morph by herself for the day. And I'm like, okay, Jake, time to back it up. Let's back up this train a little bit. Let's pull it back.
Yeah.
And then when he gets out of her face, he's like, you know what? I don't even care. whatever. And I'm like, all right, no need to be a dick. Like, I get it, you're a child and you have rage and emotions and shit. No.
No, but he's a leader. He's a leader, so you really gotta respect him.
I forgot. He's the leader. I should respect that. You're right. I'm
glad you're on the bandwagon now.
Whoa,
okay?
hang on.
Jake,
hang on. I'm like mid bandwagon.
No, get on. No. You're like running to catch the train car.
I got one hand, but I can't get my feet on the ground.
Yeah.
I'm just running, but I have one hand on. So that lost me some Jake points. That really annoyed me. Because as a leader, you need to set an example for everyone around you, and it does not set a good example when you get in someone's face when they are going through a really hard time. Granted, he doesn't know yet about what she's going through, but it's not a good look. And
I think it sets a great example. Yeah, great example for the type of leadership we can expect if we keep following this guy. Let's get a new blood in there. Get some new, fresh blood. No, he's like fine, and I agree. I thought this was, so
that was I think the only part in the book where I was like, all right, everybody calm down.
To me, it's the hypocrisy of the whole thing, and I get it. It's like, you were in Morph all day and you skipped school. First of all, I don't give a fuck about school. Okay, I'm shocked any of these kids are still going to school. That's the last thing I would ever give a shit about is going to school. But more importantly, it's just the general like you're getting new morphs and you're not telling anybody. It's like, grow up. All right, grow up. I would be grabbing you would have to pry my hands off of every animal I see to stop getting morphs. I would be getting humans. I would be going around to people sleeping. I would have all of you for the record.
You would have everyone in your family.
Oh yeah. I would be going nuts. Are you kidding?
There was a moment where Cassie was handling a kestrel in this scene, and she gives the kestrel over to Rachel to hold on to. For those who don't know, a kestrel is a bird like smaller than a hawk. They're very small, but they're kind of like hawks. And I was like, why doesn't Rachel just acquire that now?
Might as well.
Well, she needs a smaller bird.
Why are we not stocking up on these bad boys? You know what I mean? I want my Rolodex to be so fat you can't even see.
Oh my god.
You don't even know what I'm morphing into next. You know what I mean?
Exactly. A little bit of everything. A little bit of everything at once.
Oh yeah.
The chaos.
Give me one bear. Give me 8 bears. Give me every bear. Give me all the bears. I'll take them all.
Panda on top, grizzly on bottom.
If I see a bear that's got like 2 inches more of height, I'm taking that bad boy. You kidding me?
Did you read that news story? I think this was like a couple years ago where there was a Chinese zoo and a guy was dressed up in a sun bear costume and trying to pass it off as a real bear.
No, but that's fucking hilarious.
And people are like, that looks like a guy in a bear costume. And they're like, no, it's a sun bear.
No, that's a bear.
It's definitely that's a sun bear. I'll have to send you a picture. It's very clearly a man in a bear costume.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I'm totally in on that. Oh my gosh.
And apparently the same zoo also dyed dog's hair to look like panda. Like panda bears. And they tried to pass them off as panda bears.
You could do that, I think, with some Great Danes. I do think it would convince me. Like, just for a moment. Not like
they don't have enough hair.
Like, I'm not, like, looking at it, like hard. But if I'm walking past it, and I would be like, oh, yeah, that's a panda for sure.
Have you ever seen a Tibetan Mastiff?
I don't know what that is.
A Tibetan Mastiff is a very giant, fluffy dog. Imagine, like the Mastiff from the Harry Potter movies, Fang, the gray dog.
Yeah.
Imagine that, but with, like, Pomeranian hair.
I love it.
That's a Tibetan Mastiff. They're massive.
Let's get a couple of them bad boys. You know what I'm saying? Let's get a couple of these.
They tried to use one of those to pass up as a lion. I'm not kidding. Like, these are real stories. You can look them up.
Wow, I love this.
I kind of want to go to the zoo, and all I'm acquiring are dogs.
Wow.
I'm like,
yeah, you might as well. Why not?
Yeah, Jeez. That's how you expose them. Anyway.
I don't even know how we got here yet.
I don't know, but it's fun. Anyway,
great.
So in this discussion, Jake being mad, Rachel being upset, Rachel talks about, my dad's going to move. What am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do. I'm upset. And then they all start arguing about saying yes to the Elemist, whether or not that's a better idea, whether that's a better plan. They're all like, feels like it would have been better if we could just forget everything and just go to this new planet with our families. And
yeah, and then who
you know,
shows
I don't
up?
know.
Who shows up, huh? Mr.
shows up?
Elemist. He pops on in. He
Mr.
goes, I told you I'd ask again. And they're like, Sam
Yeah,
Elliott,
exactly.
what are you doing here? You know what I mean? You bad boy. He comes in. He's got his little mustache.
cowboy hat.
I don't know if he has a mustache.
I think he has like
should.
a long beard.
Yeah, he should. So he pops in. He's like, let me show you a little something. Maybe aid you in your little choice. And he literally transports them to the future. It's not exactly clear how far into the future it is, but the Earth looking pretty bleak. Pretty bleak. It's
Not
looking like completely torn apart, dystopian, Mad Max style craziness. They pop on in. They're wandering around. They decide that they could all just sort of pass as controllers because they see everybody as a controller in this bleak future. So they just kind of wander. They see this massive Yeerk pool, and at a certain point, they try to pose that that one of them is Visser 3 now.
Oh yeah, that Axe. They're like, oh, he's an Andalite. If we just tell people he's Visser 3, like they're gonna believe.
And it works for a second. It works on like the like whoever they're talking to, this person, and then
also I wanted to say, when they were looking around, they see this EGS tower, which I was like, oh, is that real? Can I like look that up in real life? So I went on Google this morning, and I was like, EGS tower, and that's all I typed in, and Google came up, and it was like Seropedia, which is like the Animorphs wiki, and I was like, uh-oh, and there was like EGS tower, the tower in the Animorph series, and I was like, oh, no, everybody close everything, I don't want to know what city they're in. I don't want to be a sleuth.
It was about to spoil it.
I didn't want to see anything that would spoil it for me. I was curious to see if like I was more checking to see if like I was right that they are in the Pacific Northwest, but
were you right? We don't know.
I don't know.
We didn't read that far.
I didn't read that far. I don't know if it's a fictional tower or if it's a real tower, but I just see all these wikis coming up and like, oh, the tower is mentioned in this book, and I'm like, no, done. We're closing it out. I'm not going to look up this information. You better not be looking up that information, Gianni.
No.
Okay, good.
I can't. I see what I think you clicked on, but no, I'm not going to click on it.
Yeah, I just got to the search page, and then I see
more.
The little blurbs on each web page, and I was like, too much information. I'm scared. I don't want to know. I'll be surprised. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Axe is pretending he's Visser 3. He's playing it really well. Good for Axe. Good job, buddy. And then a bug fighter comes down, and it's the real Visser 3, except now he's Visser 1.
Yeah, man got a promotion.
He's the baddest baddies.
And he's not just him. He's also with a controller version of Rachel.
In the future, she's an adult.
And they basically outright tell them, they're like, yeah, we know exactly what you're doing here. The Elemist is offering you a chance to look into the future. This is what the future looks like. Hope you can go back and like take the offer that they're offering you, because otherwise this shit is going to happen to you for sure.
Well, that's not necessarily what they said. They kind of left it ambiguous as to what they chose, because controller Rachel is like, I remember coming here, so that's how I knew exactly when and where you would be. And, and Rachel's like, what decision did we make? And she's like, I'm not going to tell. and they also said that they killed Tobias and fried him up and ate him in bird form, which did not need to be included, but that's kind of metal, honestly.
No, the craziest part is when they're like, we put one of your human sauces on it. I believe it was barbecue.
It's like, damn, you don't have to hit us that hard.
That was the most out of pocket shit you could have possibly said. But yeah, so then they snap back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh,
Mom's spaghetti.
And they reverse their decision. They all decide, like, actually, this would be, I think, a way better thing. that we should just accept it. And then they realize they're not immediately transported. And they don't know what's really happening. So they go to school the next day, and it's very confusing, and they're kind of wandering around, almost in a fog, wondering what's going to happen.
Yeah, they're trying to figure stuff out, and then Rachel gets up super early the next morning. She flies over to Tobias again. She's like, you gotta come with me. You gotta come with me right now. And he's like, why? What's up? She's like, I know where the Kandrona rays are. I figured it out. Piece of the puzzle. And so she realized that the Ellimist had been subtly giving them clues as to where to point them towards the Kandrona rays. No one else had really picked up on it, and Rachel started putting the pieces together. She's like, look, he can't tamper, but he can kind of subtly hint us in whatever direction.
Hint us.
Yeah, give us a hint.
Right.
He can subtly point us in the right direction. And so she says,
for whatever reason, the Ellimist has very specific rules about not actually interfering, but also a little bit interfering. And and they notice, or they recall that they noticed about the why do I keep wanting to say it's a duct? It's not a duct.
Drop shaft.
Drop shaft.
There you go.
Why do I don't know why the word duct wants to come into my brain chemistry right
Maybe
now.
you like
anyway,
ducks.
so the drop shaft. Yeah.
So
so they're recalling the drop shaft, and suddenly this has become like a really interesting mystery where they're like, I don't know what the heck it's trying to sort of show us here. And so they remember also seeing the EGS tower that you had also recalled. And it all sort of is clicking in Rachel's brain. It's like, I bet you that the Kandrona is in the EGS tower.
And there's a drop shaft in there that we can take all the way up.
Yep.
Awesome.
And so they kind of piece together the clues, and they decide that they're going to raid it. They're going to go for
early
it.
in the
And
morning,
so the whole climax of this book is actually pretty baller. It's just this crazy action sequence of them just like running up this bitch, just combing through.
There's a couple moments right in the beginning of this before they're fighting everyone that I wanted to mention because I thought they were really funny. They all morph into their battle morphs when they get to the tower. They see a guard sitting there by himself. I assume it's like 5 a.m. like no one's there. And so they're like, okay, Marco, go tap on the door. So Marco, in his gorilla morph, goes up to the door and just gently taps the glass with his finger. And the guard's like, hey, get out of there. And then Marco's like, oh, okay, cool, what's up? I'm a gorilla. And the guard's like, oh, Andalite bandit. And I'm like, why was that not your first thought? He's just like, hey, gorilla, what are you doing? Get out of here, gorilla. So that made me laugh. He suddenly remembered Andalites exist. And then, so they knock him out. They get into the elevator to go all the way up to the top. And so Jake says to, I think either Marco or Rachel, he's like, hey, can you press the button? I can't. And he just holds up his tiger paw. I was just like, oh my God. I just thought that was so funny. He was like, oh, I can't do it. It just holds up his little paw.
Yeah, I've been there, brother.
Yeah, so they go up to the top floor. She grizzlied her way through the door. She couldn't see very well because grizzly bears don't have great eyesight, so she doesn't really know what she's running into until she gets like about 3 feet away and she realizes, oh, these are a bunch of Hork-Bajir and Taxons and we are outnumbered. She's like, too late to stop, so she just barrels into all of them.
Bulldozes.
Massive fight. Everyone's bloodied. Marco gets like his stomach ripped open. Rachel loses a paw entirely and she didn't even realize it. Jake gets all slashed. Everybody is beat up, even though they beat all the Hork-Bajir and everything. Good. They demorph to heal themselves. They go in, find the Kandrona. So then she goes elephant morph and she pushes the thing that's holding the Kandrona out the window and it falls 60 stories to the ground and shatters.
And no one noticed, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, Tobias was like, "Oh, no one's on the ground. We're good. Push it through the window."
So then they get one final talking to from Beardy McBeards a lot, and he's like, "Yeah, you guys did it like that. I couldn't say nothing. Giggle." And then they outright ask him like, "Was the future you showed us, was that the future?" And they don't really get any sort of concrete answer. So the implication, I
he's like,
suppose,
maybe.
is like, yeah, it was a possible future is kind of the conclusion that they all draw from it. So, not a whole lot else is really uncovered about the Elemist in this moment.
No, he's a very mysterious boy.
Yeah, so I mean, I would have asked. There's just a million questions that I could have possibly asked, but they kind of like brush it off. And then the last
Rachel's dad.
moments, the last moments of the book are really just Rachel sending her dad off. So the B plot was, I guess, wrapped up off screen, which is a little bit of a bummer for me personally, because I was actually invested in like what Rachel's decision would be, but or at least invested in how she would approach her father about it, especially with the passing comments like that you had made about, you know, her always wanting her father's approval and her dad saying that she was a really good gymnast, that she could really be something or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, we don't really get like a big scene out of it. It's really just her dad being like, "You could always come visit me if you want." And she's like, "Okay, Dad." And then he takes off.
Yeah, she chooses to stay with her mom. I think part of that, of her choosing to stay with her mom, I mean, obviously she wants to stay and help her friends. She has a new hope for like saving the human race, essentially. But I think that is also a statement of her feeling like she doesn't need her dad's approval. Yeah. Like, I feel like it kind of brings it around to this, oh, I wish my dad would admire me. I wish my dad was like super proud of me. And they even mentioned like right at the very end, he's like, "Oh, what are you going to do while you're here with your mom and your friends?" And she's like, "Oh, you know, just saving the world." And then her dad's like, "You know, Rachel, if anyone could do it, it would be you." And it was like a nice little, aw, daddy-daughter moment.
That button works, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I think in a way she found her way to getting her dad's approval. Something that worked for her and also worked for, you know, the sense of family that she needed, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah, I have to agree. But yeah, that's the Stranger in a nutshell.
That's the Stranger in a nutshell.
Yeah, knocked down another one in this little,
we did. We
series.
knocked out another one. So
how many more could there possibly be? You know.
So here's the real question. Was the Stranger the Elemist or the Kandrona rays?
Ooh, I thought it was the Elemist, but
I thought so too.
Yeah,
that was just a dumb question I was asking.
The Strange Rays would have been a different title.
The Strange Rays. Wow, these rays are really strange. Yeah.
Whoa, all right. Yeah, we should call something that. Maybe a book.
Yeah. So, TV-wise, would you change very much? Would you keep everything as it is? Would we kind of like, I don't know, I guess maybe model it after the last book?
Yeah, so the one benefit of a TV show, I think, is that we don't have to adhere to the book series specific character perspectives every time. We can give people that glimpse, and I think it's appropriate for something like The Capture, where it is very much a cerebral story within one character's head. But here we have the benefit of being able to bounce around to those different perspectives and getting to take those character growth, for lack of a better word, that we get from books like The Predator, or that we get from books like this, or even that we get from books like the Tobias book. I'm blanking on the Encounter. We can throw those all into one thing and be able to flesh those things out
Yeah.
As we go. And so I think that the key thing that I would add to The Stranger is, since the Predator, we have that revelation that Marco's mother is Visser 1, which is obviously sort of weighing on a lot of the things that Marco does since then. But we haven't been able to be back inside his head, so we haven't seen how that development really affects him. But here, we can outright address it if we're doing it in a TV show. We don't have to be beholden to the fact that we're just in Rachel's head. And one of the things that I think was a missed opportunity in this is Marco's decision to want to accept the offer of the Ellimist should directly be because he would have the opportunity to be with his mom again, as if she weren't a controller. And so I would even add to the Ellimist's laundry list of abilities something to the effect of, like, he can communicate with everybody at once, or he can, like, you know, sort of telepathically communicate with people individually. And I would directly have Marco ask the Ellimist the question of, can my mom come too? And based on that answer, Marco be emphatically driving towards this, even more so than he is in this book. I think just really sort of divide the group over whether or not this decision is consequential. So not a major change, I think, in regards to the actual content itself.
But that would be
definitely
a really good
definitely
good
an
thing to
emotional change,
Yeah,
that I would want to drive this particular book to. Because I think you have, like, a really interesting moral quandary as the framework for this book. I think you could also show more explicit understanding of the future. I think you can. I don't know yet. You know, again, like I was saying, I don't know how the Ellimist is going to come up later in the series, so I don't know how consequential this is. I hope it is consequential, and I hope it pops back up in certain ways, but cross those bridges when we come to it. I don't think that having any of the Visser 1, like, interacting with them, I don't think that stuff is necessary, actually. I think that
I don't think so either.
You could just see that stuff happen, honestly. It could be just flashing visions. It can be something that they're just sort of objectively watching over. Try to get a peek into how the Ellimist sort of views time as like a sort of you know, it like all happening at once, kind of like you were saying, the Dr. Manhattan sort of experience of time. Like, I think that might be maybe more interesting. Because, again, the pressure is on the moral quandary for how these characters deal with it, not the stress of, like, them having to communicate or them having to navigate, like, whether or not Visser 1 is going to try to kill them or whatever. Like, none of that stuff is necessary for this, right? So those are my changes that I would make. Yeah,
I do also really like the image of Rachel meeting herself in the future and what that looks like. You know, I wonder if maybe, I don't know how you could work this in naturally, but, like, if she could ask her future self, like, if she can kind of get her away from the rest of the group or something and just be like, did I go with my dad? Did I go with my mom? Like, what's dad like? What's mom like? How is everyone? You know? And then her future self
even separate the characters, have them each see, like, what happens to each of them.
That would be a really great idea. They can kind of see how things have affected their lives. I don't know, like, maybe some of them aren't living anymore, you know, they got killed. Prince Jake gets killed in battle. Don't get too excited, Gianni. It's not gonna happen as far as I know. But stop crossing your fingers.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
But
no, I don't want Jake to die.
Correct.
Yet.
But yeah, I do like this idea. Like, maybe even future Rachel kind of teases everyone in the group a little bit of, like, oh, I know what happens to you. You become, like, I don't know, like, something like a failure in life or something, and you just give up and you're living on the streets, or, you know, like, she can kind of tease them with, like, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, I'm not going to tell you. And that can kind of heighten that anxiety and that worry to the point where Rachel does attack herself, and that's when the Ellimist pulls them out of it. I do like the idea of being able to kind of see these flashes of time, this exploration they get to have in this future world. So yeah, I think that stuff would be really, really interesting. There's a lot of time for us to explore that stuff. So I would definitely focus on that a lot more. And yeah, that's kind of really, I think, the only change I would make. I don't think I'd change too much else in this book. I think everything flowed together really well, especially with the plots kind of tying into each other. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Well, great.
All right.
So what's the next one, Casey?
Next one. It's called The Andalite's Gift.
Ooh, okay.
And
can I look at the cover of this one? Is that allowed?
It is a Megamorphs #1. We're on
my God.
the Megamorphs book. What's the matter with this cover?
What is the difference with the Megamorphs? Can I ask?
So I think, okay, so I did read this first one. I don't remember that much from it. But I do remember that each chapter is a different character's perspective.
Oh, okay.
So you get everyone's perspective in each chapter, and they tell stories from their separate viewpoints.
Just awful. Jake's little thing here is not too terrible. I mean, it's bad.
No, Jake's is cool.
But I mean, I don't know what we were thinking with Cassie's. First of all, she's an infant child.
But describe what you see. Yeah, describe what does the cover look like?
So they have 4 different little boxes, box arts on like the one page, right? And in the top left, there is the Jake actor. I don't know, like the model. And his face is half Jake and half tiger.
Yep.
And then next to him is Cassie, and it is half an infant child and half of a fly. And the proportions on these are also, and I cannot emphasize this enough,
a bit off.
Exactly accurate. So, truly the most scarring one is Rachel's, for sure. I'm just looking at it. That's awful. She's a half bear. And then, of course, there's Marco, and he's half wolf. And then Tobias just sits right next to K.A. Applegate's name to remind you that he's also there.
I am also here. There's no quote on this book. So
Bummer.
Ready your pants for this one. The Andalite's Gift. Okay. So there's one plot line in this book that I remember that I was like, come on. And it did not make me happy. So I have a feeling this is going to be one that may make you a little upset, which is good, because we need to get into some like not bad stories, but not as high quality, high caliber storytelling as what we're used to.
I am quite excited. I have no idea what to expect from this one, but
cool.
I say we just dive right in.
Oh yes, awesome, cool. I'm glad you're excited. Now, what would you like to see from each character from their own separate perspectives? What journeys would you like to see from each one?
I think you got a series called the Megamorphs. I say you take full advantage of it, and you have them all morph into one animal.
Oh my God, like a transformer? Like a transformer?
Just something truly cursed. That's what I want.
I like that.
Plot-wise, nothing else. I just want them to spend the entire book trying to do that.
I love that. They could all like choose one animal and be like, okay, how much can we be like this one animal? And then just kind of stick themselves together. So
yeah, why not? Let's go crazy.
I like that. Also, Axe is not on this cover. Do you think Axe will be in this book?
He will be in it, but I guess he's not a POV character, which is a bummer. It would be fun to see an Axe POV. That would be... I guess if you were going to do like Megamorphs, like the perfect way to like introduce Axe as a POV character would be to like just segue it into the Megamorphs first, like give him a chapter, test the waters, see what that's like, and then you can give him his own book. But maybe I won't hold my breath, but that would be exciting. I would be thrilled about that.
I will give you what they call a teaser in the business. There are future books with Axe as a perspective, so.
What?
And that's him the whole book.
That's thrilling, actually.
Yeah.
That's super exciting.
Yeah. And it's cool because you get bits of Andalite lore, which I vaguely remember. So.
Oh, hell yeah.
I don't want to give you more than that, but Yeah,
Let's ball out.
That's what we have to look forward
sick-witted.
to. Again,
Awesome.
not sure if you're going to love this one. I'm not sure I'm going to love this one, but it is next on our list. So we are on 7.5 because it's
Beautiful.
Megamorphs. So cool. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for listening to Morphin Buddies today. If you'd like to email us, you can email us at morphinbuddies@gmail.com. That's gmail.com. And we will see you in the next episode. We can't wait to tickle your little eardrums to your little heart's delight. And don't laugh at me, Gianni.
It just gets more cursed every time the sign off.
Listen, this is how I charm our viewers. This is how we bring in the big bucks. This is how you do it.
Hell yeah, brother.
I'll let you do it next time. I'll let you charm their little tootsies off. And that's it. That's it. So we hope to see your little eardrums next time, and we'll see you back on Morphin Buddies.
Bye.